Okay, howdy everyone. Hello, hello. Recording this video the early afternoon, first day, first week of our new semester and academic year, this fall 2025. This is for the class 409, the Rhetorical Tradition, online. And everything else has been more or less updated. I just need to say hi. I always like to record a fresh introductory video each semester for all the classes I teach online. So just want to talk a little bit about me, this class, where we're coming from, what we're trying to do here, what you're going to be encountering, some expectations, some suggestions for success, and so on. So we are in the Rhetorical Tradition. This is a class that I have taught seemingly forever. When I first came to this campus and the department, it was the year 2004, and possibly some of you weren't even born yet. My goodness. 22, yeah. And I taught a class similar. I've taught some version of this class. Back then it was 211. It was different. It was a mass lecture. It's gone through different iterations. I did a big reboot of this course last summer, a year ago. I was working on it throughout the summer and then even throughout the fall. So the first kind of relaunch of this class with the new kind of format and updated look and some new content and assignments, that was this last spring. That was the first time. Then I had a summer class, and now here we are. This is the second full run. There's a few little things that I'm going to tweak in terms of the assignments, some tweaks that I made in the summer that I haven't carried over that I still need to do that. So you might see some small adjustments being made to like the description of the assignments and some of that kind of stuff. But that's, stuff that's going to affect us later on. So we should be fine for the first month or so, just right now, ready to go. But let me back up and sort of go through the syllabus here. I got my syllabus printed out. I encourage you to do the same. Have a physical copy, something that you can consult and refer to often. Hopefully everything that you need to know is in here in terms of, the assignments, the due dates, the values, the expectations, objectives, and so on. So in the front page on the top there, my name's Donovan Conley. My office is in the Greenspun building on the 4th floor. I will be in there in my official office hour time from 2 to 4 Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is after my in-class. I'm teaching one in-class this semester, Tuesday and Thursday, so I'll be in my office until 4 o'clock on those days. You can also book to meet at a different time and day if that doesn't work for you, or of course there's always Zoom, and of course there's email, there's discussion, chat rooms online. There's many ways that you can reach me. I don't tend to use Google Chat that much, Gmail Chat. I have in the past, but I don't use it that much anymore, but you can try that as well. So many ways of getting a hold of me, and I encourage you to do so. That's a major thing that I want to state up front. Since we've mostly gone to online education, at least in my department, and certainly me, I almost barely ever teach in person anymore. And so I don't get to interact as much with my undergraduate students as I used to, like pre-pandemic. And I find that to be kind of a bummer. I miss the interactions that I have with you guys. And I miss that our interactions, used to be more about like substance and readings and concepts and ideas and so on. And now it's a lot of like, management stuff in terms of the websites. And, I understand that's important, but I like to interact. I like to have conversations. And so I really encourage you to reach out if you have questions about the material. I've tried hard to make this class robust in terms of the online experience. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of supplemental material. There's a lot of material. And if you are, motivated, and if you're pretty good at working independently, then you might not have a problem just kind of doing it. However, if you find something to be challenging, confusing, totally over your head or whatever, That's why I'm here. I love talking about rhetoric and rhetorical concepts and theories. And even though the world we live in today has kind of moved on from rhetoric as an important part of how we engage one another in terms of like persuasion and deliberation, it's still all around us, just more so like bad versions of it, right? And so my argument is that, you know, students are not as interested in classes in rhetoric as they used to be, and there's not that many jobs in rhetoric as there used to be, and people don't seem to really care that much about the requirements of healthy democratic persuasion and so on. Never, for me, that's the argument that we need it even more. We shouldn't be running away from it the way that we are. And yet, here we are. Rhetoric it's a very old discipline, and we've gone through these kind of ups and downs and valleys and chasms and canyons before, and we're kind of in one now. Nevertheless, it still matters. Rhetoric's out there. It's doing its thing, good, bad, all the rest. So this class is meant to help us to see where it's happening healthily, poorly, to hopefully encourage better, healthier civic practices, to be more mindful about community, citizenship, belonging, public engagements, healthy democratic deliberation, being able to spot power, manipulation. Now we're dealing with the level of like really, really convincing digital technologies. And so the line between, knowing that I'm being persuaded versus not being able to tell the difference between, the reality and some effort to persuade, it's getting really weird and murky. I think these classes are therefore even more important, right? And I'm jumping headlong into this whole new era of AI that we are entering and have entered, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I'm trying to work with this stuff. Nevertheless, it's changing everything. It's changing even how we kind of think about thought. It's changing how we think about, communication, representation. So, my argument is as we move into this new, era of artifice and fake reality and all the rest of it, this class, Rhetorical Tradition, offers some really important, valuable anchoring points for what I'm increasingly just referring to as human communication. And I don't think we will do well if we lose these basic kind of ideas, practices, values, right? So I'm really trying to honor some of the best parts of the rhetorical tradition. There's lots of parts that, we can ignore, but there's some important insights, and that's kind of what we're up to here. So let's see, already babbling on. But that's my pitch. That's why this class is relevant, important, even if people don't seem to care too much about rhetoric. That's sort of why it is even more important, it's why we need it even more. Anyway, so the structure of the class is 4 content modules, roughly about 3 or 4 weeks each. So that's all listed on the first page. There is a book, James Herrick's History and Theory of Rhetoric. 7th edition is the latest. If you have an older edition, you'll probably be okay, but just try to be mindful of what you might be missing, compare with other students. There's not a ton of changes that happen from edition to edition, but sometimes things get left out and you might miss something if you have an older one. All right, so the next page, course assignments. We have quizzes that will be sort of capping off each of those content units or modules, just to kind of check your basic comprehension of the material that we've covered, some of the big ideas, big concepts, big names, theories, and so on. I have these new assignments that I created through the refurbishing of this class last year. With these knowledge grids and the concept map are new, and I'm pretty happy with how those have gone so far. Knowledge grids, don't take grid too literally. You don't need to actually work within a spreadsheet or anything, but it's more about understanding kind of these boxes of insight and explanation. We'll get more into this when we do this, but it's a nice, I think, handy way of organizing the kind of main ideas of the main theorists and theories and being able to kind of understand them in different ways, right? You can understand Aristotle in terms of morality or power or the goal of this model. You can understand Plato differently by asking the same questions. What about power? What about morality? And so on. So, it's a way I think of getting right to the core of the ideas in this class and be able to organize it and make distinctions in a central and kind of coherent way. The concept map or a diagram is an assignment that's going to actually ask you to work with AI to develop an image of a concept, and you're using AI to help realize your own interpretation or your particular take or reading of this concept. Again, we'll talk more about that later, but that's a fun one, I feel like. Just go ahead and use AI. I'm assuming that we're using it all the time, and so that might actually affect sort of like how I'm approaching some of these assignments. I don't know. I was listening to a colleague say in one of our meetings last week that he's just getting rid of multiple choice exams altogether because, how difficult is it to just feed the questions into AI? I don't know if I'm there yet, but I might be tweaking the quizzes a little bit just to make them a little bit more human friendly. I don't mind you guys using AI with research purposes and even composing drafts and so on. But the thing that we all need to remember is that these things are dumb. They're like calculators. They don't think. They just spit back based on prompts and probabilities. And so they make errors all the time. They're getting better at not making those errors, but they do. And someone who's studied rhetoric a lot, I've asked it some high-level questions, and it gets close to tricking me sometimes, but I catch it making mistakes. It's not trying to fool anyone. It just doesn't know. It just puts things together based on probabilities. But there are a lot of errors, omissions, outright fabrications, and so you need to be very careful. You can't just rely on it to give you the answers or the truth, but you use it as a research assistant. Hey, help me think this through. Help me do this. Help me. Don't do it for me. Help me do it. I'm the ship. I'm the captain of the ship. The AI is the rowers, something like that. Anyway, so those are the assignments. All of the dates are listed on the schedule there. The first thing coming up is to just say a little bit about yourself in the discussion due at the end of this week. That's just a little bonus point kind of thing. Just say hi, talk a little bit about yourself, and maybe we'll get a little interaction going on there. And then we have quizzes coming up. Also, please go ahead and doing contract grading. I don't know about contract grading. I try to do this sometimes as a way to kind of streamline my effort and your effort, right? If you're not interested in getting an A and don't really care about doing all of the work that is needed to get an A, and if you're happy with a C and you only want to do C amount of work, it makes sense to help kind of organize the class in terms of what you want to get out of it and therefore what you want to kind of put into it, right? And so that's the idea there. Go ahead and take that one question quiz and let me know what it is that you're aiming for. That helps with the grading at the end of the semester. After that, just please really dive into the material. So let me talk a little bit about, this class in terms of the content. It's an upper division class. So therefore, my thinking is that we should be able to read pretty advanced stuff. We're obviously not reading original ancient Greek and Latin texts, but we are going to the originals. We're going to at least get a flavor of Plato and a flavor of Aristotle. A lot of the most important ideas will be coming from Herrick, the Herrick textbook, but I also like to give you guys copies of the originals, copies of the originals, whatever, translated and all the rest. But, let's read Gorgias's Encomium of Helen. It's short, but it's fascinating, And so there's going to be some of this stuff where you're like, I don't get it. This is weird. This language is weird. It's like listening to Shakespeare. But if you can kind of push past, that's when you start watching a movie and it's got like subtitles. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to watch this movie in subtitles. But in a few minutes, you kind of get used to it. And next thing you know, it's like it's just natural. I think it's kind of like that. Just give yourself some time to kind of, I'm not going to be asking questions directly from Aristotle, and you don't have to know the original like closely. But I'd like for you to get in there, read a little bit, kind of work your way through it, and that way it's nice to be able to say, I've read Aristotle, I've read Plato, I've read Cicero. So that's part of the goal here. And there is a good amount of information, but I try to space things out. I give you a good amount of time for your assignments, and I give you a lot of supplemental stuff. So there's video lectures accompanying every week's of content. There's also notes, there's supplemental stuff, and so there's a lot of support running through each week of material. You have sort of more than you need in terms of being able to make sense of this. Nevertheless, this is a radically stripped down version of the story one could tell about rhetoric going back to the origins, it's even a stripped down version of the class that I used to teach. So this is my opinion, is about as tight as I can get in terms of the best stuff, the most relevant stuff, the most interesting stuff, the most valuable, etc. I hope you agree. So we'll move through, these 4 units on content. We go back to the beginnings. We spend about a month on the ancient Greek and Latin context, or Roman context, and then we jump straight into the 20th century. We used to go through Middle Ages, Renaissance, early modern period. We just skip over all of that now, and we go straight into the 20th century, and then we spend basically the next 3 units all on 20th century, and we kind of go up to the 50s, and then rethinking rhetorics is sort of like 50s, 60s through, 90s almost, and then the final module, contemporary challenges, is like right now. So there's still only about 3 weeks on that. I could do a whole class on just right now. This is barely doing justice to anything. It's just kind of skipping across the surface of the most important stuff in this ancient tradition of ours. And that's already probably pretty good. Let me see what else here. Please do read through the syllabus, look through the policies, familiarize yourself with the expectations. My expectation is, this is an online class and students love online classes, and I understand the reasons why, but, the reality is that they do require a fair amount of independent organizational skills and motivation, right? So you can do well in this class if you have a good, good approach. If you keep yourself organized and keep your reading schedule, on track, make sure you're doing the readings each week. I encourage you to take notes physically, just write down as you're reading. Do you have any questions, anything important? Underline things, circle things. I'm trying to make an art push for analog physical skills, right? Like holding pens and putting ink on paper. I don't want to lose these skills. There's a different level of active learning that happens when you do things physically versus just kind of letting them wash all over you. So my, suggestion, my encouragement is to be as independently organized as you can be, to be thinking ahead, to be planning ahead, be aware of what's coming up, all right? If you don't use a calendar or a planner of some kind, please do so. Find some organizational method. I use digital calendars. I use my iCalendar, and I've connected that to my Google Calendar at work, and so everything's interconnected. If I don't put a meeting on my calendar, chances are I'll miss it. Due dates, meetings, all of this important stuff needs to be written down. Know what's coming up. Be looking ahead. Be thinking about, what's coming and what you need to be doing. That's going to help you a lot. Like I said, I am here to, I'm not saying do it all on your own. I am here to talk and to strategize with you and to entertain, some of your ideas. Sometimes students ask me to look at a draft of a paper that they're working on. I'm happy to give you feedback. I like the idea of being able to offer you some real substantial intellectual support and feedback along the way here, as opposed to just, yes, I can open the assignment back up, or, yes, you can still submit something late. Let's have some conversations. That's been my bummer about the online stuff. It's easy. It's easy for you. It's easier for all of us because, we don't have to drive and fight with traffic and all the rest of it. But we lose important human, intellectual, social connection. And so that's been my kind of theme over the last few years, is like, let's not lose that. Let's try to keep connected. I think that's mostly what I want to say here, gang. So yeah, please dive into the website, the syllabus, take care of that discussion thing, take care of your contract grading thing. After this point, most of the videos are going to be pre-recorded. So you might see an older looking version of me or a younger looking version of me. Try not to be alarmed. All that older stuff has been recorded. Like I said, I've been teaching this class or some version of it for about 20 years. So some of that stuff's going to feel a little bit out of date maybe, but the content and the ideas they're here. The videos are still there because the ideas are still relevant and the content still matters. So I think that's it, everyone. Hope you're doing good. Hope you had a good summer. I'm looking forward to a good semester here. Stop on by and say hi. Reach out and say hi. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the class. I hope you get a good amount out of it. It's going to come fast and furious. It's going to feel that way, but I have, I think modulated the assignments and the kind of the rhythm of things such that you can do well in this class. Just do not forget about this class. Do not forget for days and certainly not weeks to check in and do the work. You got to keep on top of it, and then you'll be fine. And reach out if you need. All right. Have great Mondays. Looking forward to seeing you all, and be well. Peace.